Hey up YouTube, today we have the Furibee Darkmax, a super aggressive blacked out true X racer capable of 3S all the way up to 6S and of course intended for 5-inch props. Now there's only two boards inside this thing. The F4 Art Tower branded FC sits on top of the stack with the onboard Betaflight OSD and an integrated switchable VTX with a smart port feature, and that's 25 to 200 milliwatts. The only other board inside the frame is the 4-in-1 30A D-Shock capable ESC, and that's 6S of course too. Topping off the build are a set of DYS 2205 2550 kV motors, and they're swinging some Gemfan 5152 quad blade props. For eyes we have a nice 169-960H CCD camera, and that all comes in at 315 grams no LiPo. This is similar in many ways to the exceptionally good B-Fight which I reviewed recently, but with even more speed and slightly higher spec components. At the moment it even pops up on sale at the same magic £100 mark. So I fitted a receiver, set up the endpoints and flight modes, and then fed it a 3S 1800 mAh which you saw at the start there inside. Now I've seen Andy RC and FyreSG review this one, so I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. But of course, it's not as simple as that. The reviewer's curse is strong with this one.
Okay. I had a little test hover with this inside, and I noticed when I let it fall and powered on a little bit just to test the throttle range out, occasionally I was getting a little yaw to the left, just a little poof, probably only 10 degrees or so, but now Jabs just said he had that on his quad a while back, and it turned out it was soft mounting to the flight controller that it needed. Seems okay at the moment. I've just got a little 3S battery in. It doesn't seem to be doing it now.
So unable to reproduce those initial yaw twitches or catch them on camera at all, I put on the FPV goggles and did some gentle circuits where it was going to be much easier to see it if it was popping up still. No problems I could see here, and picking up speed a little bit was fine, so it's time for a little bit more camera angle and a 4S. And just before this I added a throttle curve so I could show my brother he could get a more linear feeling, as at this time he was finding 4S in tight spaces quite hard work, especially low roofs. Now he's got completely used to it and it wasn't an issue, but if you're finding throttle too aggressive on 4S, or it's difficult to hover and fly gentle circuits and basically maintain height, I suggest you try this. It won't affect your top speed at all, it'll just give you more stick resolution around that spike of power and make the full throttle throw more linear.
Try a little hover, it's less aggressive than yours now, at that bottom end. As soon as you go up to the point where it starts to punch out, it'll start getting aggressive.
Okay, yeah.
And that's at 0.5, but if you punch up a little bit, you'll feel it start to grab you. So I'm not sure whether it's enough or right or whatever, but that bottom end where you apply throttle is more gentle.
Much nicer.
And that's at 0.5. I'm going to try and have a couple of laps with it. About 45 on that one.
Unfortunately 4S was where it all started to go downhill. Gentle circuits were okay, but adding throttle around corners or punching out would yaw the quad. I still had control of it at all times, but I lost control of the yaw as it was having its little burst. And most of the time this was in relation to how much throttle I used, so I'm pretty sure this is vibration based. And you can see it twitch as I come around this corner here. And there's a couple of slightly clearer examples here.
Okay, he did the yaw bit, he did the yaw thing. Oh, down again as well. Okay. Okay. A bit more camera still the way I'm cornering it to different times.
What happened there?
Every time I cornered, then it was like...
Really?
So I got this one on the bench and took it apart and looked for anything that was moving or wobbling, and the camera was solid on its mount, the motors were down, the flight controller wasn't moving around. I kind of expected to find a broken standoff or something like that was letting the board twist, because it's only the yaw axis that have the issue on, nothing cyclic at all, and it's directly in relation to how much throttle I've got. So that kind of does lean towards vibrations. Unfortunately I couldn't find anything at all, so this is most likely a super sensitive gyro on the flight controller. I just kind of expected it on more than one axis if that was the case. So I put it all back together again, Loctited everything, and basically did a build on it to make sure that it was okay. I even went as far as to reflow the entire flight controller and go over all the ESC points, but the issue was still there. So the only way this was going to get into the air safely was to possibly soft mount everything and maybe add some capacitors. You could swap out the flight controller, but then you're losing FPV, and there's really not a lot of room for a full-size VTX and receiver to go in this. Now, since I already had some soft mounts for motors, I put them on and give it a go.
Yeah, still a problem. None of that yawing was me. Wow, okay. Let's stop that now. Back to the bench. So, 6th time lucky. 7th time? I don't know, I've lost count. But everything has been done. That can be done. I'm optimistic. Oh my god, it is sorted. Wow, so that needed... Well, let me just test it first. Don't count your chickens. Yeah, I couldn't even throttle up on a straight line before. Yeah, and it stops dead as well, instead of a little quirk. So it is sorted. I was beginning to think it was actually a faulty component rather than just a super sensitive gyro. Yeah, that is absolutely sorted. So I needed a 1000 microfarad cap on the main input. That's a low ESR 50 volts, so I can put up to 6S in here. Probably won't, but I haven't got a 5S, so I might. I know these props are pretty beaten up, so it's doing a fairly good job flying this nice with. Okay, so yeah, sorry, 1000 microfarad cap on the back. I did have that coming out of the back there. It was sticking out loads, but because of the light strip, you had to have it sticking out. You couldn't have it underneath, it's just too big. So that's folded up and packed inside in a bit heat shrink. I needed 4 rubber silicone O-rings for the top there underneath the flight controller, and I needed to file away the top of this so the nuts and the buzzer didn't contact, otherwise any vibrations are coming straight through the top anyway. And then 4 rubber standoffs in the bottom there. I've also soft mounted the motors. It might not have been needed, but yeah, it was bad, and it is finally sorted. Whoa. Yeah, it's a perky little bugger. Yeah, I'm not sure I really dig these props that much. They seem quite inefficient at the top end on this squad. But the V-Flight, it seemed opposite, they were efficient. Oh. I need some more space to let rip this, but I'm finally looking forward to some FPV with it. Man, this was a slog to get this one running as well, it should have been. both time and cost, and it should not have been. Should have been, could have been, would have been another one. However, it is thoroughly worth it. Okay, I got a little squirrel out of it then, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's due to a slightly low tune, because they're all coming with stock PIDs these days, and stock PID, I think, P is a little low. I mean, I've been running it low on purpose, so I can run 3D props which require less gain. Otherwise, if you tune them really, really, really tight and then put 3D props on it, it just twitches out and freaks out. Plus, unless I'm trying to get through a really, really tight course, I'm kind of okay with a looser tune. Whoa, look at that recovery, that's ridiculous. And this is 4S. This thing's 5S compatible, and I think it'll run on 6S, but I can't see it being much more aggressive. So yeah, time to give this one some space, some FPV, and some new props, bless it. These have been hammered. I think I'll also stick it in a full range receiver, because I've had a little one in here for the moment, just because, well, I needed to get it running. I didn't run the FyreSG? Yeah, FyreSG that came in it. I don't run that protocol, so I had to put a little FyreSG receiver in there. But so far, I'm really impressed with the capability of this quad. Just, this was an unlucky one with a very sensitive flight controller. I needed soft mount motors, soft mount bobbins, soft mount silicon O-rings there, and a 50 volt 1000 microfarad big fat capacitor on the main input. That seems to have sorted it.
So finally time to fly some FPV, and I love this camera. It's the same 16.9 CCD used on the B Fight, and there's a little joystick on the back to change settings. There's no cables to plug in. It's lovely, really nice. I even bought one for a build that I've got coming up soon. Of course, not even this went smooth. As I discovered when trying to refocus the camera, the lens just turned around on its spot and wouldn't screw in or out to refocus. Yup, it was cross-threaded and not sitting perpendicular to the sensor. They just rammed it in and got it close. As you can see on the left hand side of the image here, it's slightly out of focus and the centre's pretty nice and crisp. It goes ever so slightly out to the right as well, but just a little bit. Now this is after removing the lens and putting it back in, so it is not as bad as it was. However, it still won't sit perfectly straight. And I get jello when I'm not doing just mild cruising. This is definitely just because the lens is moving around when you get a few vibrations, because it gets even worse when the props are a little dented up as well. Oh yeah, I should say, I changed props to some tri-blades and it seemed a lot more efficient. These are 5040 King Kongs. So a gentle cruise it was, and I was quickly shown that the stock dipole wasn't great past line of sight distances, so I fitted a clover leaf and then at least enjoyed some FPV where the 200mW actually felt like 200mW should perform. After 2 or 3 lipos, I was thinking about doing some drop-ins through this roof until the nasty yaw twitches showed themselves again. Just here, there, and then they started to get a bit more frequent. Again, flying slow and smooth like this, they didn't really show up much. But as soon as you request a bit of power out of this thing, boom, left, 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 just twitches round. It's exactly what I was getting before, and it's definitely vibration based. There's no broken standoffs, there's nothing wobbling, there's nothing moving, all the soldering's intact, everything checks out.
Okay, so gentle flying's still not an issue, but for some reason can't really tell there. It doesn't look too bad. No, that was one. Little yaw twitch, left yaw specifically. There. There. That's feckin' dangerous. Way. That's enough of that. Okay, so my camera was loose. It could have been just that time, but this thing's super sensitive to any vibrations. Nope, still a tiny little yaw twitch there. I'm soft mounted as much as you can possibly soft mount the thing, and I've got a 50 volt 1000 microfarad cap in the back, so there's not much else I can do to quell vibrations apart from change out the flight controller completely and that wobbly lens due to cross threading out of the box. So yet another quad with some serious QC issues, and a plethora of them too.
So I tried my hardest with this one, guys, but I'm absolutely cooked. I'm also convinced now that it is indeed a faulty gyro on the flight controller, specifically the yaw axis. It's just slowly been getting worse and worse, and nothing from adding low ESR caps to reflowing the flight controller and soft mounting the stack, the motors and the FC sorted it. I got about half a dozen flights or so without any issue, but then it resurfaced without any damage to the quad, without any crashes. It's definitely something that's failing. I may revisit it when I have suitable gear to go inside, namely a flight controller with an integrated VTX, but for now this Darkmax is not getting any more of my time or hobby budget. I'm gutted that I wasn't able to get the best out of it when it's such a promising quad, but at this stage I'm damn sure that nobody could without replacing parts. So, that's all for this one. Hope to see you in the next.